Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. In this video, I want to bring you into chapter 12. This is the postural movement and performance assessments chapter, a very important chapter when it comes to testing. And I want to talk to you about the lower cross syndrome. Now, NASM does a really good job, but there's one thing I wish they had put in there is the reason why it's called the lower cross syndrome. Just another little picture or an addition to table 12.2 would have been nice because the concept of the cross, hence the term lower cross syndrome, and the same thing, by the way, in the upper cross syndrome, kind of be nice just to have a like a little X mark right at the hips just to kind of show why it is referred to as the lower crossed syndrome. And the reason is because when you look at how the body is positioned, remember this is a static postural assessment issue, right? Is the lower cross, upper cross, and the what's known as the pes planus distortion syndrome. And so when you look down at the page 386, you'll see table 12.2, the lower crossed syndrome. And if you kind of think about it, when you look at a person from the side, it's easy to see where the cross is, and it helps you to kind of remember which muscles are overactive and underactive, because that's really what you're looking to do and understand when you look at these static postural issues that people have. And so in the lower cross syndrome, if you look at somebody from the side, your eyes go immediately to the pelvis, right to the side of the hips, right? And they're looking at them, you're looking at them from the side. And if you look at the hip as the center and you look at across, right, one side of the cross going up to the lumbar spine, and the other, and that same line coming straight down to the front or the anterior part of the body, going downward past the hips to the front of the legs, basically. And then the other side of the cross would start up at the abdominal, right, the front of the midsection, and go straight down to the kind of the gluteal area. So you have this cross, right? And if you look at it, let's say the person's facing this way, right? So you're looking at the person this way. This cross goes to the this one goes to the lumbar spine, to the front of the body, representing the hip flexors and the lumbar erector spinae. And then this guy over here would represent up towards the abdominal, front of the abdominals, down to the glutes. So you got this cross. And now if you're looking at page 386, just, you know what? Why not? Just take a pen and draw a little line there and make a little X. On table 12.2, you'll notice it says excessive lumbar lordosis on the picture. Yeah, it's not a bad idea now that I think about it, talking to you on this video. Make a little X mark. Where you see excessive lumbar lordosis, that is one line that goes straight down towards the front, right down into the front. And then starting at the top of the front of the body, make another line to create the X and make it go through the words anterior pelvic tilt. There is your lower cross. And you can Google it, by the way. Also, you'll see a ton of pictures. Really simple. The reason, again, that it's important to remember the X, or lower crossed syndrome with the X, is because the top of each of the lines of the X are going to both be either the top is going to be tight and the bottom is going to be tight, and the other is going to be weak. I say tight, but it's really overactive, just another term for it. Overactive on the same line, and then the muscles on either side of the crossed other side of the cross will be underactive. And that's what you're seeing here. So with that said, take a look at table 12.2, and you got to memorize the muscle groups. And it's not a lot to memorize, but you need to memorize these muscle groups. And if you look with me where it says static positions, you have hip joints are flexed. That's that increased lordotic curve and anterior pelvic tilt, right? So basically the top portion of the pelvis, right? The top of the pelvis is anterior forward, right? And that's what that anterior pelvic tilt means. The pelvis, anterior pelvic tilt, hips are flexed, lumbar spine is excessive lordosis. So literally, it's like you've arched your rib cage up, but excessively, right? Way too much. And so potential muscle imbalances, this is what you got to know for testing purposes, is that the potential overactive muscles, think about the cross again, think about the X mark that you created. The cross line that goes up towards the lumbar spine, the lower back, down, crossing through the pelvis to the front of the thighs, right, to the bottom part, right? So that's where that X part of the X mark X is going. That would potential overactive muscles would be the hip flexors, right? So the bottom part of that line crossing down from the lumbar down to the front of the thigh. So that front part would represent the hip flexors and the lumbar extensor muscles. So lumbar extensors or the low back muscles. Those are the ones that are tight or overactive, right? And that's why you would know that, because that line connects those two opposing muscle groups in a way. But they form one of the lines on the cross, on the X. The other one, the other line or the cross represents the underactive muscles, or the muscles that have been lengthened, right? And they're weaker, so to speak. And those would be the glutes, the glute max medius, the hamstring complex. And then on the other side, going up towards the abdominals, would be the abdominals themselves. So again, if you take table 12.2 and look at that picture, draw draw an X, right, with the center of the X or the cross right at the um, center of the hips, right there. And you'll see that one side to the upper, and I'm looking at it straight down like this. If you're looking at it with me, if I draw an X, to the upper right would represent the excessive lumbar extensor, or excessive lumbar lordosis. That's because of the overactive nature of those lumbar extensor muscles. So that's the top here up on the right hand side. And as you take that line straight down, you'll notice that the hip flexors are the ones that are pulling the pelvis anteriorly. So those two are overactive, right? They're tightened, they're shortened, they are overactive, right? And then if you take, so that's those guys, lumbar spine, hip flexors. Now the other side of the cross, this way represents the abdominals, which is just on the opposite side of the lumbar spine. They're weakened, right? They're antagonistic to the erector spinae muscles anyway. So those are weakened, and then you just go straight down. And where does that go? To the glutes and the hamstrings, basically. And so easy enough, I think, to understand how it's easy. If you get confused, think of an X. Boom. The lumbar extensor muscles, the erector spinae complex, overactive. They're tightening up so much that they are creating excessive lumbar curvature or lordosis in the lower spinal column. And the line straight down from the cross is the hip flexors, and they're both going to be tight, overactive. Whoop, flip it over, and you've got the two underactive areas, right? The underactive would be the abdominals at the top part of that line, and at the bottom, you've got the glutes and the glutes and the hamstrings kind of work together in this. So those would be underactive, and that's how we get the concept of the lower cross syndrome. I am hoping this was helpful. I've done this video, or I've explained this video any number of times. I always try to think of different ways to help to explain it. If it was helpful, let us know by writing the word understand in the comment box below. If you figured out another way, perhaps, that you thought about understanding how to memorize those muscle groups, not like it's a lot to memorize, but if you have and it makes it easier for other students, let us know as well. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. Give us a thumbs up if you appreciated and liked the video. And there's, of course, a notification bell. You can click on that just so you know when the new videos are coming out. As always, we are here to help you to pass your NASM exam. Let us know how we can be of assistance. Take care. Have a great week. Talk to you next week. Bye.